Call this meeting to order. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda is public input. I remind you, I'll give you 5 minutes to speak. I'll try to give you a little bit of a warning when we get up to about 1 minute. I'll just try to show you the one. There are 3 individuals signed in for an ordinance that's under discussion, so I'll call you at the during that discussion. Outside of that, we'll start with E. Drew, subject matter, health effects of our remitting utility meters.
Hello. The existing safety standard...
Will you put there's a little button there.
Do I have 5 minutes from now?
Yeah, absolutely.
The existing safety standard for exposure to artificial non-ionizing radiation is 1,000 times too high for a healthy population. The safety standard completely ignores the variability in human health, age, and size. As you've been informed, this type of radiation has been linked at very low intensities to certain types of cancer, neurodegenerative disease, asthma, allergies, and diabetes. Alex Brown informed me a single AMR radio read water meter, which you've proposed to install in Silver City, emits 17,280 3-millisecond long pulses of 920 megahertz, i.e. radio frequency or RF radiation, throughout every day and night. These transmissions are intense enough that they can pass through a human body at half a mile away. The meters of this type that have already been installed are severely limiting my ability to function in my community, take care of myself, sleep, and live my daily life. Just 3 minutes of exposure to 1 or 2 of these meters where the pulses are within range of the HMS building as well as Sierra Counseling have made it impossible for me to spend more than 2 minutes at these locations, meaning I can no longer see my PCP, my cognitive behavioral therapist, or HMS family support workers. What makes me electromagnetically hypersensitive, or EHS, is a rare mutation of my HLA gene, which gives me a condition called CIRS, standing for Chronic Inflammatory Response Syndrome. There are certain toxins that my body cannot process or eliminate, and exposure to rapidly pulsed low-intensity RF or microwave radiation is one of them. These rapidly pulsing, continuously transmitting utility meters activate a life-threatening overactive inflammatory response that saturates my blood with inflammatory compounds like histamines and other stress proteins. Some of the symptoms I get, even with brief exposures, are high fever, total insomnia, partial paralysis, heavily increased frequency and intensity of seizures, body-wide pain, difficulty breathing, chest pain, heart arrhythmias, severe cognitive dysfunction, stroke-like episodes, frequent blacking out, and temporary paraplegia for half an hour or more, even when out of range of exposure. There is no safety standard for exposure to man-made RF radiation that takes into account the continuous nature of exposure to it, the health effects of collective continuous pulsing of multiple meters, or the rapid rate, i.e. milliseconds or nanoseconds of transmission from these meters. Because of this intolerance to RF emitting utility meters, it is not comparable to other EMR intolerances. If this were a nut intolerance, you'd be asking me and other EHS patients to eat peanuts over 17,000 times a day and somehow magically survive and live our daily lives and function optimally. A single AMR water meter emits about 51 seconds of RF radiation per day, but is more dangerous than a cell phone, as evidenced by a double-blinded EMF provocation procedure, I'm quoting here, where the subject had no conscious perception of the EMF field she was exposed to. The subject, a physician complaining of EHS, was exposed to typical environmental strength EMFs. The symptoms were caused primarily by field transitions off, on, off, rather than the presence of the field. This indicates that it's the on-off, off-on intermittent pulsing of these RF meters that's dangerous to human health, the unsafe intensity of pulses aside. This is a big part of what my immune system is totally intolerant to. So it's much worse to be around these than it is for me to spend 51 seconds a day, half a mile from a cell phone tower, because it's a continuous triggering of my chronic overactive inflammatory response. In 2011, the World Health Organization classified RF radiation as posing the same level of risk for cancer as DDT, lead, asbestos, tobacco, chloroform, etc., meaning someone will get cancer from it. Scientists aren't able to predict who. Even the WHO has recently embarked on a 30-year study of continuous mobile phone use to get a clearer picture of what continuous exposure means for the human body. Once these types of radio frequency or microwave emitting utility meters are ubiquitously installed, it makes all indoor-outdoor environments in town inaccessible to me. I realize I ask a lot, but I would request under Titles 2 and 3 of the Americans with Disabilities Act that you discontinue installation of the AMR water meters immediately, uninstall those that have already been installed in Silver City, and instead furnish Silver City with a non-emitting hardwired digital water metering system. This would protect public health, protect the health and safety of meter technicians, and preserve their jobs. My CIRS specialist, Dr. Scott McMahon, writes, I am considered an expert in the diagnosis and treatment of CIRS. I have seen over 900 patients with this condition from all over the U.S. and 8 other countries. Ms. Drew has CIRS, a chronic, debilitating, and progressive illness caused by a genetic predisposition and exposure to biologically created toxins. Our world has never seen so much EMF pollution. Please consider Ms. Drew's request not to place these AMR water meters in your town. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you. Next is George Dworin, Mini Tourism Report, ACD.
Mayor, councilors, good evening. I'm George Julian Dworin, Silver City Arts and Cultural District. I am here to give you a mini report on tourism for the month of July. I'm very pleased to bring to you the news that we received matching funds for our grant application to New Mexico Tourism. That's $40,000 we'll be receiving in matching funds towards lodger's tax, so that gives us a 40% bump in our budget. Very excited about that. In the grant application that we wrote, this is going to fund us for a campaign that's going to be a 12-month campaign. Part of this, half of this, is going to go towards this campaign that's going to target cultural travelers in the airports of Albuquerque, El Paso, and Tucson. It should reach millions of travelers coming in and out, so it'll reach locals as well as travelers who are coming from out of state and out of country to all these airports. We're basically planning to saturate them in the digital monitors in the baggage claim areas as well as in the concourse areas in all of these airports for 12 months. We're going to share with them beautiful, pleasing images that are going to be in juxtaposition to their anxious and harried travel experience that they are going through in the airport. Hitting them with Silver City, it's New Mexico True, and promoting the wonderful wilderness assets as well as our downtown and Grant County. So we're very pleased to be in partnership with New Mexico True again, and very excited about that. Another part of this that I want to report in that we're also very excited about is another digital campaign that is the monitors on the 40 Rail Runner commuter trains between Santa Fe and Albuquerque. There are millions of commuters as well as travelers who fly into Sunport, into Albuquerque, but are traveling to Santa Fe on their adventures as well. And this also is going to be a 12-month campaign. In all of these, one of the things that's really elegant about all this is that it's digital delivery. So we're going to be able to change our message on a regular basis to highlight festivals and events as well as seasonal assets that we have in our area. One other campaign that we're kicking off this month in September that we're excited about is Trips on a Tankful. This is a radio campaign in Albuquerque. It's actually going to be on 8 radio stations with a Silver City giveaway for a weekend of adventure in Silver City. And it will run for 4 weeks, and then after the giveaway, which will be at the end of September, we'll follow up with further Silver City radio advertising with the same radio stations for another month. So we're alive and well. We're placing and promoting, and it continues to yield numbers. The Murray Ryan Visitor Center reports a healthy July. Again, we're seeing double-digit numbers, 24% increase over the previous year, and again in line with the assets of the Cliff Dwellings and the City of Rocks. So again, the numbers are not just the visitor center, but we're seeing them from the attractions as well. So I wanted to bring to you all some good news in tourism and open up for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Next is Inca R., environmental illness.
Can I move this down, please? Somehow. Maybe I speak without it. It's okay, maybe I can speak without it.
I don't think they'll be able to hear you. You can start while they work on this.
Can Alex as well? Is yours easier to move?
Got it?
Or it's still catching up? He's got it. Oh, perfect.
Thank you. Sorry.
We may have already done.
Got it.
Thank you. My name is Inca, and I live with environmental illness, which also includes electromagnetic hypersensitivity. I don't want to reiterate all the facts. There's a lot of research we can all do. I want to say that this technology is not safe and that the FCC standards do not protect us, especially not the children, not the elderly, not the disabled, the chronically ill, the immune compromised. And if there's only one child that dies several years after there may have been a decision to install these so-called smart meters, that is one child too many. If there's one elder that comes down with a sudden disease that they didn't have before, that's one elder too many. There have been people that have died of leukemia within 3 months of having these so-called smart meters installed on the outside of their house when their bedroom happened to be on the inside of that same wall. The technology is not safe. There's some people that suffer severely from it, but it's not just those people. It's that on the long term, it affects all of us, and especially the children. I ask you to please consider that, and to please do extensive more research. And I would love to see 300 children at this council meeting the next time. Thank you for hearing us.
Thank you. And the next is Rick Fox in regards to smart meters.
Thank you, Mayor Moronis, and all attend. Oh, where's the button? Thank you, Chief Ennis. Thank you very much, Mayor Michael Moronis, and all in attendance. I'd like to say humbly and earnestly first of all, from my heart, that my forte and strength in life is not public speaking. In fact, from childhood and in high school and speech class, I have a deep-seated fear of public speaking, and yet, ironically, it is addressed to many of you having dialogue personally over the phone the last week. I keenly aware of and acknowledge humbly my strengths and weaknesses, assets and liabilities, and however, my background is a self-made entrepreneur and business owner and independent contractor in sales and public relations and marketing. I have a unique strength in articulation, I believe, and in creative writing and in dialogue one-on-one with fellow human beings or in a small group. And I've had a very grounded and centered and passionate and goal-directed and self-driven life for several decades, principally in San Diego and growing up in the Northwest. And my life has been overwhelmed truly on every level in the last 7 years in Silver City through multiple extreme, traumatic and shocking and bizarre health crises, family crises, legal crises, mostly health and mostly family-related, multiple deaths in my family. And I do want to affirm my deep gratitude and appreciation and earnest admiration of my support unequivocally to Chief Ed Reynolds with the Silver City Police. Back 7 years ago, I met him trying to resolve a traumatic legal crisis that he resulted in an extreme sleep disorder diagnosed by Dr. Jason Koh, a psychiatrist at HMS, since transferred to Japan. And my primary care physician, to honor and admiration of her, Meredith Heidenfeld at HMS, I've had over 40 sessions with, over 40 hours in 2.5 years since May 8th of 2013. And to Dr. Donald Steiner at the Pulmonary Lung Institute for his support in documenting my extreme sleep disorder, documented through the Healy Regional Medical Center and overnight sleep visits, October 30th of 2008 and May 7th of 2013. And I'm barely managing. Also, I had a severe head and neck injury that is yet to be diagnosed, let alone treated, through being stonewalled by the insurance company Molina/Centennial, that Meredith Heidenfeld is endeavoring to seek resolution for me. And with extreme post-concussion syndrome and extreme nerve tingling in my neck and half my neck still numb 6 weeks later, I'm about 2 out of 8 cylinders, as well as emotionally fragmented and trying to do my best. I've dropped everything the last week to concentrate on my humble and earnest emotional concern and physical concern for the effects of smart meters. And I want to honor, first of all, Mayor Michael Moronis for his generous time and humility and compassion and friendship as a fellow human being. In our meeting last Friday as Moronis and Knudsen and Law Firm, 2 hours from 2 o'clock to almost 4 o'clock, to Guadalupe Cano for your time on Wednesday the 19th, as well as a follow-up conversation on Saturday. And sorry to interrupt your dinner once more in that conversation, to Cynthia Ann Vedison for your return call and busy getting ready to go to WNMU as the museum director, and for taking time to call me back, and to honor also Jose A. Ray Jr. at the library on Cooper Street yesterday from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, a 2-hour meeting where I sense his true empathy and his kindness and honesty and humility, as I've sensed with all council members and the mayor and Alex and James I'll get to in a moment. And to also then subsequently from 4:15 to 6 o'clock last night, almost 2 hours, with District 2 Councilor Linda Hyman Smith, and gratitude to her for her truly listening. I broke down in tears a couple of times with her yesterday, and all of you assembled, including James and Alex, to allow me to take the first half of the meeting. I felt it was important to connect as a fellow human being citizen, and setting aside deferring the specifics and the scientific aspect of the emotional and psychological and physical harm from smart meters, and then getting to the subject at hand. I felt it's important to make that connection, even if it means that it took a little more time for all parties involved, and the necessity to hopefully schedule a subsequent meeting. There's been times where my recent life, Alex experienced this on another civil issue back on Tuesday, April 7th, from 1:30 to 1:55 p.m., where I literally almost was feeling like I was being psychically strangled from the overwhelming crises of my life relating to a civic issue he and James Marshall helped me resolve. I was a little better this afternoon.
Mr. Fox, that's 5 minutes.
It is 5 minutes
It
already.
is 5 minutes. Appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Next item on the agenda is council comments. Councilor Bedison?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everyone who's recently called about the animal ordinance, and I appreciate everyone's phone calls and emails and comments, so thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Heyman Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to talk a little bit about math. I want to talk about what a nanosecond is. A nanosecond is 1 billionth of a second. So, some of the discussions that we've had is that there are, right outside here, microwave towers that are going 24 hours a day, every day. The type of meters that have been talked about actually don't go 24 hours a day, every day. They send out information in nanoseconds, and they do it every few minutes. Just did a little calculation here. A billionth of a second is a nanosecond, and a nanosecond is to a second as a second is to 30 years. That's a very small portion of time. It's such a small portion of time that if you think, gosh, there's 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day, how often would these things actually send out a bit of information? It's 200 times a day. And so I just want to contrast the cell towers, the microwave towers, the ham radios, the various kinds of radio stations that send out and play music 24 hours a day, to the idea of a very small watch battery run device sending out a small amount of information for nanoseconds in a day. And remember, a nanosecond is to a second, as a second is to 30 years. It's a very small amount of time.
Councilor Ray? No comment. Councilor Kano? I don't have any comments. No round twos? Moving on, approval of minutes. Councilor Bedison?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the minutes of the regular town council meeting of August 11th, 2015, with an amendment. The amendment is going to be placed at the end of public input, number 4. I'm sorry, wrong place. I'm not looking at this correctly. At the end of new business, number 11. And it should state, based on the discussion and the motion to approve the permit, it was clear that the council's intent was to grant both a waiver for Sunday sales and for alcohol service within 300 feet of a school or church.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion as amended and stated.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the regular meeting, August 11th, 2015, as amended by Council Bedison and read into the record. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is reports, staff reports. Mr. Brown? Go ahead first.
Thank you. Mayor and council, I'm pretty sure you're very well aware of what I want to talk about, but in the last several weeks, I spent a good significant amount of my time dealing with issues of urban forestry. As we know, many of you know, and you may have seen some of the work, we had a 120-foot tree fall on PA Creek, which had a potential to actually block the creek with the torrential rainfalls that we've been having in the last few weeks. It was quite critical that we get that resolved quickly. Our fire department, along with the Youth Conservation Corps, responded the very same day to begin work and the next day to wrap up the work and get that tree cleared out and the creek open. Very, very fortunate that we were able to get those resources so quickly before the predicted rains. We've also had several other tree issues around town. Many of you saw the tree that broke and fell into the street off of Goff Park. The branches were all over, trees were falling all over. It's kind of a symptom and an indication of why it's so very important that we look at our urban forest issues, and we have had some assessments done so we know what our inventory is. And then the obvious, kind of the elephant in the room, are the trees at the museum. And we've had several discussions with our neighbors and trying to come up with resolutions. The community demonstrated what I would classify as very clearly that there is a strong emotional attachment to the landscaping at the museum. And I don't want to be too vague about that. It was loud and clear that the public wants to protect that landscape. Some of the points of interest, there was a lot of rhetoric about what we were actually faced with. The poplar tree is a silver poplar. There's some photographic evidence that tree was there many years ago, up to 100 years ago. We spoke to some people that lived in that house when they were very young, and they confirmed that tree was there. There was talk that there was a pear tree at one point. That's been pretty well confirmed that there was a pear tree on the property, not in that location, as well as many other trees that have come and gone over the times. The elm tree is, although it's a mature tree, it is not one that appears to be a native of the area or a native of that property or deliberately planted on that property from the photographic evidence that we've got. The tree products, in speaking with our risk management, do not rise to the level of a nuisance under the New Mexico state laws. So this is no longer really an issue about a complaint, but an issue of maintaining our urban forests and our landscapes and considering the value that the community places on that property. So there is no legal obligation to respond. However, many of you have heard the issues of whether we're business friendly, and whether we're business friendly or not, or just friendly to our neighbors and would do as we might expect our neighbors to do and accommodate for us, is definitely a consideration when we deal with complaints. So keeping that in mind, we enter negotiations, and we believe that both sides are conceding, and that the Siberian elm, of which we have thousands of in this town, can be removed, and that we would deliberately select a replacement tree that, I don't know if the mayor wants to take credit for this, but pointed out that the big poplar tree is, if it's about 100 years old or greater, it has a fairly short, less than half of its life left, and it will mature and die, as all of us will. If we were to deliberately select a tree that fits the landscape and fits the area that it's in, fits the courtyard that it serves, and is of an age and a growth rate that it would mature. We could possibly have the poplar dying as the other one mature to replace some of the shade, and we could actually get into a very deliberate and professionally planned rotation of our landscape and our trees. So that has been the current plan for about a week, and with that, I will stand for questions.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Okay, Mayor and Council, Peter asked me to remind everybody and ask the public to please be patient with the streets. With these torrential rains, they're really behind in cleaning the streets everywhere. So basically, what they've been doing is they focus on the highway, then they focus on the arterials and the drainage, culverts and gutters and everything, clean all of that stuff so that way if we get another rain, nothing's blocked. And then they move into the residential neighborhoods. So we've been getting a lot of complaints about not getting into the residential. Our last big one was on Sunday, and they are now getting into the neighborhoods right now. So just please be patient with them. We've only got so many resources, but they're doing the best they can to get out there.
Councilor Pedersen?
Thank you. Mayor, I just wanted to ask real quickly, did we have much damage from the one Saturday night compared to the one that we had, on Sunday?
No, the one Saturday night was just more. I guess the first one pretty much took down everything that was weak. So, there wasn't a whole lot left to take down, but there was so much water and everything that it did move a lot of dirt and block a lot of the drainage ways, so they're out there cleaning that stuff right now.
Thank you, and thank them for all the work they're doing.
Okay, thank you. And next I wanted to talk about the financing for the meters. As you know, the ordinance was supposed to be approved tonight. That had to be moved for issues that were outside of our control. As you know, we went and Mayor, you went with us in late June, I believe, and met with the rating agency, S&P, as well as some bond insurance. They were supposed to get that rating to us about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We didn't get it until Friday. So that has extended our schedule out at least a week because the underwriters needed a week to publicize the bonds themselves. So, as the council knows, and which will be publicized, we'll be meeting Tuesday morning in the annex upstairs to take action on the bond ordinance. So, and then the amounts of the bond and everything, you'll have the final numbers that day, because we did try to do the meeting on Monday evening, but I'll be in Denver and I won't be able to get back until 7 o'clock, and it'll be too late for Councilor Raymond Smith. You'll be back east, and some of you will be traveling and stuff. So we're scheduled to do it on Tuesday morning. Some good news about it. We did get an A- rating, which is very good for us, especially a utility our size, that there are so many variables. A big part of that is the water conservation we've been accomplishing over the last 3 years. The rating agency had to look at our system because our system has changed. Our water usage patterns has changed drastically over the last 4 years. It started changing around 2009, I believe, but it's drastically changed over the last 4 years. So, we got to the point where the staff has already put out an update of our 4-year water plan, because we really want to look at how we look at our infrastructure over the next however many years that we have water. Originally, our 2006 water four-year water plan, it looked like our water rights would only last us through, at the latest, 2044. Right now, we have another study that says 2113. Based on the information that we've put together and the way things have changed over the last 3 years, we've got a substantially longer amount of time. And so we may go from focusing on big infrastructure and the acquisition of water rights to doing a good job at focusing on the maintenance of our current infrastructure and focusing on the water conservation plan as that has been approved by the town council, I believe, in 2012. Do you have any questions on any of that?
Any questions? Councilor Bedison?
I believe it was 2013 that we...
2013?
Yeah,
Okay, it was
conservation plan.
somewhere there, right, yeah. 2000, sorry.
And just to clarify, the meeting on the 1st is specifically about the financing.
Specifically about the financing. That's the only item on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Alex? It's 8 o'clock on, 8 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday morning, special item just for the financing the bond ordinance, whether we approve or disapprove getting into a finance agreement.
Yes, Tuesday at the annex upstairs. So you go in the Washington Federal Bank building, the front doors of the bank, and go upstairs. Just for clarification, so hopefully whoever wants to get there.
Perfect. Any other questions? Any other staff reports, Chief? No other staff, is there? Any reports? Legal counsel from Ann Mackey? Nope. So I guess we're just going to have to move along. Next item under unfinished business. A, approval, disapproval of ordinance number 1241, an ordinance amending Chapter 6, Animals, Section 6-187, Animals Running at Large, and Section 6-90, Failure to Provide Proper Care and Maintenance of the Municipal Code of the Town of Silver City. Sponsoring this ordinance is Councilor Cynthia Ann Bedison. Councilor Bedison.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to clarify that the animal care ordinance, or the ordinances before you, is really to replace the animal care section of the current ordinance. And the other sections mentioned animals running at large, and just by extension, also the failure to provide proper care and maintenance. So it's not a comprehensive change, it's just one little section. And hopefully we'll be able to provide some clarifying information for folks on like a brochure that can be downloaded from the website, and actually information that we can hand out to folks that might be kind of given a little bit of education if they're still single point tethering their animals. So I want to make it really clear, like I did 2 weeks ago, that the administrative enforcement, citations, citation contents, failure to correct violation, and penalty assessments established have not been changed in the original animal ordinance. This is only for the animal care section. And just to also clarify further that barking dogs actually don't exist under the animal ordinance, they exist under the noise ordinance, and it's already in effect. So, but to go through the ordinance real briefly that we're going to be voting on, it really is to ensure that folks have their animal on a lead when they're out in public walking, but also, so that they have them on a leash. But so the leash law is already in the current one, but we wanted to make it just a little bit more clear. But also that on, actually, almost anywhere, there's no single point tethering of animals, whether it's on private property, Of course, ordinance currently states that you should not prohibit actually tying up your animals outside of a store or something like that. So even that is really unacceptable under this ordinance. There's, of course, a few exceptions, and it happens to be, let me make sure I have the right place, excuse me. I had it written down. So the few exceptions are working dogs, hunting dogs, and search and rescue dogs. But in these instances, the animals can only be tethered when in the presence of the owner or keeper, guardian, or trainer, and only for short periods. So those are the only animals that are permitted to be tethered in a single-point tethering sort of system. There's an option for folks so that if you don't have an enclosure, if you don't have a fenced-in yard, that you can actually develop a trolley system, and it's elaborated within here about how to actually make the trolley system so the animals can't wrap themselves around a tree trunk or around whatever pole the trolley system's on. And I've seen those sorts of trolleys work. They're really effective. The animals are then allowed to play and get out and about and make sure they don't run off, but at the same time they can still get access to fresh water. And that's really critical, making sure that your animal has access to fresh water, appropriate shelter, and fresh food. There's a few other things in here that really, it's really important about, you can't cage or crate an animal in such a way where the animal's not free to stand, turn around, or have access to fresh water and fresh food, except for if you're transporting, like I do occasionally, my little dogs to the vet, so they don't run all over the car. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then in Section 6-190, which is adequate care requirements and specifications, this is probably the most difficult in many ways to enforce for our officers and for the animal control officer, but at the same time, it gives them parameters, so if they see anything at any time that would cause them to then, if they're in the home for another reason and they see an animal being mistreated, that they have at least some guidelines and some guidelines for which they can use to take care of the animal as well as whatever else is going on in the home. So in the long run, I'm hoping that folks, that the council approves this. I'm very passionate about it, and based on the hundreds of phone calls and emails and messages that we've received through town staff, I know that a lot of other people are just as passionate about this. I've only received, in the entire time this has been out for consideration, one negative comment. So that's my presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Is there any questions for Councilor Bedison? Councilor Raymond Smith?
Councilor Bedison, if this were to be approved, when would it take effect?
And is that within...
Within 5 days after being published.
Okay.
So we have to publish it within 3 days.
So somewhere in that.
Certainly within the next 2 weeks is what I'm hearing. Thank you. I've had citizens ask me that question, so I thought I'd ask it publicly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll just make a comment, and I made this at the initial reading. This is a very touchy subject and a very passionate one among animal lovers and animal owners, and they don't always agree on many of the fine details in the whole spectrum of pet ownership and care. And it's really, over the last decade and a half, created a tremendous amount of controversy. And within that decade and a half, there's been a couple attempts at a comprehensive change to our animal ordinance, and it's been unsuccessful because of some of those fine details. And as I've been here somewhere in one of these chairs for the last 5.5 years, I have found that when we take what we already have, we look at the glaring problems, and we fix the big issues that everybody across the town agrees with or can't argue against, it's far more successful, and this is such a correction. This is taking care of a big problem within our current ordinance, and I encourage the council to pass this, and with this improvement, we can start focusing on the next issue, whatever the next big issue is, that we can actually grow a consensus among the town and continue to improve our ordinance over time. With that, any further discussion? Would anybody in the public like to speak on this ordinance? We actually had some people listed. Janie Martin, would you like to speak?
Big smile hearing you guys talk about this. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council, City Government, and town residents who are here tonight. My name is Jeannie Martin, and I've been a resident of Grant County for 19 years, and I'm a part of the Animal Advocates organization, which is here tonight. So the animal ordinance before the Silver City Town Council is the culmination of nearly 18 months of work by the Animal Advocates of Grant County and many others to help develop a law which will result in more humane treatment of dogs and increased public safety. If passed into law, Silver City will join at least 4 New Mexican towns to ban the practice of single-point tethering. It defines adequate housing and basic minimal care of dogs who have been deprived of shade from our scorching sun and protection from cold and rain. It mandates consistent access to fresh water, adequate food, and veterinary care. Animal Advocates of Grant County recognizes that the town has the services of just one animal control officer. However, the group also recognizes that just minimal efforts on his part to educate dog owners on changes in the law and provide information which will help them comply with the ordinance will be effective in the longer term. As with any change, word gets around, and eventually attitudes and behaviors do change. Recognizing that change often begins with the younger generation, and Animal Advocates is prepared to work in conjunction with high school students to educate the young ones about the proper care of animals. We know that children bring home messages to parents about various issues, which are all about change: the importance of recycling, seatbelt use, the hazards of smoking, the need to accept differences among their neighbors and classmates are just a few examples. Several businesses in town are aware of the potential new law and are prepared to help residents determine fencing needs or appropriate-sized dog runs. While Animal Advocates recognizes that a trolley system may be a reasonable alternative in some situations, it must be installed correctly in order to avoid injury to the dog. Given our awareness that alternatives to tethering will be a financial hardship to some residents, the group has begun modest fundraising efforts with the support of local businesses to help eligible residents comply with the changes to the law. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Also signed in was Martha Ramirez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of town government, and residents of Grant County. My name is Martha Ramirez. I am a resident of Grant County and a member of Animal Advocates of Grant County. As part of our work to change part of the animal ordinance, Animal Advocates conducted a written survey in various venues throughout Silver City. These venues included the 4th of July gathering at a golf park, the farmers market, Albertsons, and various businesses and churches. These are locations in the community that would allow the public equal opportunity to take part in the survey. The wording of the survey was approved by a professor of statistics at WNMU and a member of the town council. The results were calculated by a recently graduated sociology student at WNMU. 269 people participated in the survey, 44 of those were online. We have copies of the survey results if you would care for more details on the results. In summary, this survey shows our sampling of the public is overwhelmingly against persistently tethered dogs and in support of a city ordinance to prohibit the tethering of dogs. The following are a few of the written responses to question 6 in the survey, asking, and I quote, "Is there anything else you'd like to add?" End quote. And these are some of the remarks. Education about training dogs and about responsibility of caring for them properly is very much needed. If a dog must be tethered, maybe you can't or shouldn't have a dog. Consistent walking of tethered animals is a partial solution. I believe that fences are most freeing. I know not all of these people in Silver have room for an animal, but in that case, they shouldn't have one. Dogs need socializing to other dogs and people. It takes time and commitment. Dogs should be inside when temperatures are drastic, hot or cold. This is clearly animal cruelty and leads to dangerous, aggressive dogs. I don't like to see dogs left outside all the time, in particular when they don't have shelters. Too much cruelty to animals in Silver. People need training. Tethering of dogs is just sad and poor treatment of dogs. Dogs need shelter from heat and cold. This should be mandatory as well. The general health, well-being, and care is dependent on freedom and love. Animals need to be a family member, not a yard decoration. Mandatory ownership training and awareness for pet owners. Spay and neuter all pets. I think that many dogs trained in Silver City and the surrounding town make this area appear to be a very undesirable place to live. I would like to see that when this is reported, the dog pound officer would take some action instead of ignoring the calls he gets from concerned citizens. Most dogs I see tied are also ignored and not adequately sheltered, fed, or watered. I call dispatch constantly, and there is little they can or will do. I believe animals have a right to more than food, water, and shelter. They have the right to attention and love, plenty of exercise, and access to the outdoors. They also have the right to move and run freely, which helps with their emotional well-being and keeps their bodies working properly and moving well. Thank you.
Thank you. Also signed in is Jenny Sprague. Hopefully I pronounced that close.
Thank you. My name is Jenny Sprague, and I am a member of Animal Advocates of Grant County. Thank you, Mayor Moronis and Town Council members, for considering the adoption of this improved animal ordinance. Thank you, Cynthia and Bedison, for sponsoring this. A critical piece to the success of this ordinance will be enforcement. Chief of Police Ed Reynolds has expressed that he believes this ordinance is enforceable by his officers, along with help from the public as needed. Animal Advocates has been in communication with both the program director and the Education Outreach Director of Animal Protection of New Mexico in Albuquerque about providing training for our Silver City police officers to prepare them as best as possible to respond to animal issues here, and they have put us into contact with people who will be instrumental in this task, and not just training the officers, but the police officers, but the animal control officer as well. And encouragingly, Chief Reynolds has expressed to our group that he welcomes the idea of this kind of training. We wanted to address that we are aware of how critical this piece of the ordinance will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else in the public like to speak on this ordinance? I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Cano.
I just wanted to commend Ms. Martin, Ms. Ramirez, and Ms. Sprite for the work that they put into this, because I know that you've been working on this for several months and you haven't given up. And a lot of times we have people that want to push something forward and they give up after about 2 weeks. So it's great that you put this through, and I really appreciate your work. Thank you.
Councilor Benson.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I was going to say the same thing that Councilor Cano said, because I have to say that it's been a pleasure to work with such a dedicated and passionate group of individuals on something that I am equally as passionate about. And I appreciate their steadfastness and working through it in the months that we've been working together, and I can't thank you enough. And I look forward to seeing what you will do in conjunction, working with the Silver City PD and our Chief Reynolds and our Animal Control Officer. I think this is it's a wonderful group, and if this is passed tonight, then your next thing is the county. So now the county will be mad at me that I said that. I move to approve an ordinance number 1241, an ordinance amending Chapter 6 Animals, Section 6-187, Animals Running at Large, and Section 6-190, Failure to Provide Proper Care and Maintenance of the Municipal Code of the Town of Silver City.
Councilor Cano.
I'll second the motion as stated.
We have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance number 1241, an ordinance amending Chapter 6 Animals, Section 6-187, Animals Running at Large, and Section 6-190, Failure to Provide Proper Care and Maintenance of the Municipal Code of the Town of Silver City. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and second as read into the record. Roll call.
Councilor Madison? Aye. Councilor Amos Smith? Aye. Councilor Ray?
Aye.
Councilor Connor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Councilor Edison.
Mr. Mayor, I move for a short recess.
Councilor Amos Smith.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
We have a motion and second for a short recess. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are in recess.
There's a lot of
Call this meeting back to order. Quickly, just in regards to the unfinished business that we just passed, Ann, could you give a little clarity as to the publishing dates and when this will be going into effect?
Sure. I would like to correct my statement. When an ordinance or resolution is adopted, we have 3 days for the mayor to sign that document for it to be an actual passed document. So I always try to get your signature tonight or within 3 days. Then I need to publish it. After it's published in the newspaper, it becomes effective 5 days later. So tomorrow morning, I will send it to the newspaper to have it published in Friday's newspaper, August 28th. So 28th is day 1. 5 days later would be September 2nd that it would be effective.
So this ordinance should be in effect September 2nd.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next item on the agenda is approval, disapproval of resolution number 2015-24, adopting the 2017 to 2021 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, not plant, ICIP.
the ICIP.
Mr. Brown, I almost read plant.
Mayor and Council, as you know, every year we have to adopt the ICIPs. It's a requirement of the state of New Mexico for any funding that we're going to apply for through the state of New Mexico. We had public hearings, one at Golf Park during the 4th of July. We had one with Councilor Amon Smith. And so with that, staff sat down, reviewed what comments that were received during the meetings, which was based very few. And then we reviewed our own information as to what the infrastructure needs of the community are. And then we prioritized them by need, as well as those that have the possibility of being funded. So in front of you, you have the ICIPs, and this is what we're recommending, staff is recommending. There will be a few changes that I would ask that we make. Only one project, as far as one project, is if we could add to 2017 Project 21, on page 2, is add the Ridge Road Sewer extension. We've discussed this in previous meetings. That project has been awarded 100% and is in the design phase, so we should start moving on that. Hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, we might be able to get that project out for bid. But we need to make sure, even though it's in the county, we are the ones getting the funding. So I want to make sure that it is on our ICIPs at least. And other than that, it's more clerical type things, because, for instance, on page 1, we did receive $100,000 for sidewalks and $100,000 for streets, and we just changed that. We've got some funding for the bicycle master plan, and then we're going to actually go ahead and start working on that, so I want to change that to $30,000. We did get funding for the affordable housing subdivision road. I don't want to say that name, Mary, you can if you want, but we got to add the funding amount that we did get there. We got funding for phase 3 on Silver Street. I need to add that. And then phase 2 on Silver Street, we're finishing that up, so it does have funding right now. So other than that, if there's any additions that you would like, please let me know.
Councilor Edison?
Thank you, Mayor. So this comes about from the major storm we had on Saturday. I was attending a downtown function that was actually a beautiful wedding reception, and we were all parked on Yankee. Thankfully, I got out of there before the water apparently went up and over the curb. So my little car would have not floated very well, but I know that a lot of folks that were parked on Yankee had big, huge branches and things up under their cars, and they were coming out of a wedding reception. So my question to you, is there any way, have we gotten funds for, it's project 10 on 2017, is there any way that we can move that up under drainage, the drainage improvements on Yankee Street, just because, or at least, I mean, I'm not sure, you'd have to tell me if we've already got funding or if we're going to be seeking funding in this next cycle.
We've been seeking funding on it, and to help fix the drainage on that street. Yes, I've discussed that, Peter, with that project with Peter. And we're trying to identify different ways of helping that drainage. That's one of the worst streets when it comes to drainage in town, because it focuses throughout that side of town. It focuses to that one street. So yes, we have looking at it. We have been looking at funding sources.
Okay.
Peter is starting to look at designs to see what we can do to help the drainage. So yes, I think 10 is okay for it right now, because it's not a huge, we haven't identified a funding source.
Right, that's what I was asking if we had, or I guess the other question would be, there's been some one of the folks that has a business at that intersection has taken some incredible photographs after a rain like what we had. And anything that we can use to maybe encourage, even if we look at a legislative allocation for it. I mean, I know that you're going to have probably different priorities for that, but I think after this continuing torrential sort of storms that we're having, it's something that we need to consider because in one case it is it is coming up and over the curb and affecting some of our businesses downtown.
Well, until we actually know what the design is and what it's actually going to cost, this is just a very rough estimate right now, based on the fact that we don't even have a design yet. So let us focus on getting a design of something that would work, and then that way we can get you a decent number so we can at least identify where we can start looking for the funding for it. I know Peter was looking, I think I can't remember because I think we were looking at, no, it wasn't Matt. I don't remember, but we've talked about it a few times. It's just trying to identify the right funding source, because, for instance, we talked about MAP, but we can't do that because that has to be arterial. We looked at co-op, but we've been wanting to use the co-op until we catch up on our chip seal projects. That's going to be our chip seal project every year. So we've looked at the state, under the STIP program. That's not going to work. Peter, it's Colonias. Colonias Initiative is the one that I believe that we were going to look at for that project. So I believe that's the one that we're going to move forward on. But it's pretty premature right now to do a number in there. Yeah, at least it's on the list. So if we were able to identify a source, we could justify a different number through an engineering document.
Okay.
So we would be okay with the funder in that sense.
Well, I just thought I'd ask for some clarification after everything that's gone, and I just want to remind folks that the Colonias money, being able to go after that is because we designated that area as, that includes part of the metropolitan.
Well, yeah, the whole town is, town. We could actually go after CDBG for that.
That's what I was going to ask you about CDBG funding as well, because we could go after that.
We didn't think about that, but now that you said it, we can look at that for that. And then I believe we need to add one more project again. James just reminded me.
Thank you.
The water harvesting project.
Thank you for talking about that.
Yeah, no problem.
I think that's also part of the solution to Yankee is the water harvesting, that some of it's already going on now.
Mayor, if I could. So the water harvesting is taking place further up Yankee so that we don't have it.
To keep it from coming down.
Because I was going to ask if that, because it's coming off the slope, the hill up there.
Yeah, we have to identify exactly how that might work.
So is that something that needs to be added? The water harvesting, is that the project you're talking about adding?
Actually, no, we don't need to add water harvesting. We actually have the funding, and it's not really a big capital project because it's a bunch of small projects.
Right.
So it's not considered an infrastructure per se like this one. It really is a drainage project, but we've already got the funding. We don't have to worry about it being on this list. If we do, we might have to add some type of water harvesting or diversion or something to be part of the drainage project for Yankee.
Okay.
But that would be part of that project.
Okay. And then I have one more question, Mr. Mayor, and it could be on here and I just don't know where. I've had some folks that have businesses, I don't know the street. I know where it is, but I don't know the street name. The one that the co-op sits on, that goes up by Diane's Deli, is it 7th or 6th? 6th, isn't it? Okay. 6th or 7th, but some of the folks have said, do we have curbs in there? Because I guess there's been some folks that have complained that the curbs have been crumbling in that area and repeated vehicle accidents have caused them to crumble further.
Well, the $100,000 that we got from legislative allocation.
For the sidewalks?
That's going
Towards the center.
into that downtown area. We're not going to replace entire blocks of
No.
sidewalks. We're going to go in and fix the stuff that's crumbling.
Okay.
And so we can get as far as we can with that $100,000. And as you can see, it's on every year. So we
Right.
are going to continue to go after streets and we're just being general because we want to add to our chip seal project. And that's what's going to happen this year, for instance. It's going to do that section of Little Walnut that we didn't do with the chip seal. And then we're doing downtown sidewalks, and then we want to continue to be a little bit general on that legislative allocation request, so that way we can get to areas that we need to, and it's not tied to one specific area.
Okay.
That
Thank you.
we can address multiple areas.
Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions? Councilor Amos Smith?
Very briefly, sir, thank you so much. So, Council Bedison and I must have been getting the same call from the same people on 6th. And I'm also getting calls from my colleagues over on Alabama about sidewalks. So is there kind of a prioritization or plan about where the curbs and sidewalks are going to be worked on?
With this allocation this year, it's downtown.
So downtown, would that include the people who are concerned on 6th?
Yes.
Yes, we're at the...
Actually, it's not Bullard or Broadway. It's the back streets.
It's those back
It's those back
streets.
streets, right back there.
So we have good news to tell those people?
Yeah, we might not get to all of them, but...
But that's the plan.
That's the plan,
idea.
yes.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Kano?
I would just like to advocate for us fixing the sidewalks on Yankee Street, the second one up from Bullard where Millie's Bakehouse is. I'm one of several that have nearly broken my neck there, so I'd like to see that one changed if at all possible. Thanks.
Councilor Amos Smith?
What? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 2015-24 with the inclusion of project 2017-21 Ridge Road Sewers. And were there some others that you had mentioned?
Those are just clerical additions, so we'll add those.
So I move to approve with the addition of 1017-21, adopting the 2017 to 2021 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, the ICIP.
Mr. Mayor, I second the motion as stated.
We have a motion and second for approval of resolution number 2015-24 with the addition of 2017-21 Ridge Road Sewer Improvement, adopting the 2017 to 2021 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, ICIP. Is there any further discussion? No further discussion. We have a motion and a second as read into the record. Roll call.
Councilor Medicine? Aye. Councilor Amos Smith? Aye. Councilor Ryan? Aye. Councilor Kano?
Aye.
Motion carries. The last item on the agenda is appointment to the museum board. We have a few vacancies and one applicant. Bobby Ball Neal Little has applied to be on that board. She volunteers a lot there. I think she's well respected and would be a very good addition. If there's no objection, I'd like to appoint her. Councilor Bedison.
No objection, Mayor. Actually, I think it's wonderful that someone that was actually born in the museum building when it was the fire department will actually be on the museum, the town's museum advisory board.
Absolutely, very neat history there.
Yes.
And she is appointed then. Councilor Bedison.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Councilor Raymond Smith.
Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
We have a motion, a second, to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.